Nayla, thank you for joining me. I know you've got the most incredibly busy schedule, so this is really kind of you to take time out of it. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you, Maria. I'm really excited to be part of this. And yeah, let's get kicking.
Let's get kicking. So, listen, how did you become involved in filmmaking? Was it something that you were always passionate about?
It's funny, my father thinks that I should have been a scientist. I'm like, how can I do that when you're the film collector in the family? So I grew up with this massive collection of films, and I wasn't allowed to see them. I was very, very young. So I remember the Betamax staple. That kind of gives you a clue my age and the range of the decade I was born in. So he would always make sure that the cupboards were locked and all the Betamax films were in there, and they were an amazing collection from all around the world. But I knew where the key was. So being who I am, I made sure that I had the key and I would, really short, just a child, I think I was 6 or 7, hopping on the chair, my daily routine. And my nanny would help me, which was a bit naughty, but I was able to get the tapes and watch 1 to 2 films from his collection every single day. So yes, I'm sorry I couldn't be a scientist. That's because I got the film fever, as they say, very very at a very young age. So that was my calling. But I only knew that after, I would say, graduating from high school. That's when it hit me badly that this is what I really want to do.
That's fantastic because I remember Betamax. I am of that age. I remember the battle between Betamax and VHS. I thought Betamax was better, incidentally, but anyway. And I love the idea of the films being locked up and you being so naughty and getting the key and the nanny being in on it. That's fantastic. Did your dad ever find out?
He did, and the nanny was also, kind of scolded, but she was in it because she loved the films. She just loved the collection as well. And we watched films with, languages that we couldn't understand. A lot of it was also black and white, so a lot of the old Egyptian films and Hindi films, and it's just a wonderful window to different cultures.
Fantastic. So, you decided, right? I want to be a filmmaker. This is what I want to go into. I really love it. It's not something that is easy to do, is it? From where you're from in the UAE. So, what were the obstacles that you faced?
Not at all. As a woman from the Middle East, also coming from a very conservative family, getting into film was definitely taboo. It's almost like saying, I want to be a dancer or something of that realm. So it wasn't even about a financial matter that, oh, if you become an artist, you'll always be struggling and you'll depend on your family. That wasn't the matter. It was more about being a woman and getting into film, which was very controversial back then. It is still controversial today, not as much as used to be, but back when I delved into it, it was absolutely a huge no no. So when I brought the topic up to my family, they're like, absolutely not. The only opportunity, if you ever want to get into film, is that if you get married and your husband then becomes responsible and you have to take his permission. I'm like, you must be kidding me. So anyway, so that's the kind of challenge that I had to go through. And this is why I always say that a woman should never be denied an education, no matter what that education is. So I had the challenge to find a spouse who would let me leave and study. I mean, by saying leave, as in travel to an international place where film was an option of education, because back in the old days we didn't have film as an option here in the UAE, so I had no choice but to travel. So for that, I had to find someone.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing that everything lined up for you to be able to do that. And are you still facing obstacles and challenges as a woman in the film industry?
Not anymore. I would say the challenges that I face would any woman in my shoe would face anywhere in the world. So my issue now is not really a geographical issue where I'm from. It's more a global challenge. I really believe with the whole Me Too movement and Time's Up, they have stirred the conversation. They have changed, flipped the narrative, I would say, in some cases. And more women are taking what I say, the power of the pen. And by what I mean by saying the power of the pen is when you really hold the pen, you sign the checks, that's when you can tell your story. So we're no longer dependent on executive producers and different studio system where, they decide who's going to be directing what. But it's more like a lot of women are becoming producers who are able to raise money and then empower other females to get in the film business, because we are right now, we equate to 11% of female directors in the world. So this is a global challenge, and that number is really minuscule compared to how many men have published work. And I'm talking specifically about female directors. It can also get worse in other departments in film. For example, in cinematography, where the cameraman is, so to speak. So having women filming physically with the camera, that's even a much lower percentage. I believe it was around 3 to 4% in the world. So that's quite shocking.
Wow. Wow. I didn't realize the numbers were that bad. But I love that the power of the pen and the way you explain it, the ability to sign checks. That's so good. I really love that. So okay, let's go back. So you as a child you're watching these amazing movies and you're seeing these incredible stars. What are the pinch yourself moments you've had now as you've grown up working in the film industry? There must be a few.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I remember Shawshank Redemption. I've seen it a few times growing up. And no one would, I mean, if someone told me that I'm going to have an uninterrupted dinner with Morgan Freeman for over 3 hours with his producer in New York, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, right? I mean, back my old me. But seeing how much grit and hard work I've put, and I still am, going through this, it's incredible. Like, I've hosted an event for Antonio Banderas, me and him on stage for 400 people. I've been invited to go to Paris Hilton's house where I met her there. I worked with her on a show for 2 weeks. I was like her confidant when she had to fire her candidates for one of her shows back in the past. So I've had my kind of, I could say, my time with some of these, celebrities. It doesn't change who I am. I always try to remind myself that always remember where you came from and the struggles, and never let that take over what you're trying to do. And that for me is being true to myself and to the storytelling journey that I'm embarking, because I'm leaving the short format, like short films and TV commercials, and moving into series and feature films. Although TV commercials will always be there because that's a quick bread and butter, but definitely moving into the long format.
Fantastic. And I bet your family are incredibly proud now and are glad that you didn't become a scientist. So that's amazing. So tell me a bit more about moving from the short to the long film. What are the challenges there and what's the reasoning behind doing that for you?
So the reason why I feel very comfortable and confident now to be in that category, which is the long format, so that's like a feature film of an hour and a half average, is because, as we say, a long film has longevity. So you make a film today that you can then distribute worldwide and still kind of earn royalties on it on a long term. So it has more commercial sense for my investors or for people who are attached to the film. So the responsibility of that is grave.
Mm. Yeah, and is it harder in any way?
Yes, it's definitely harder, but ironically, I think it's harder, but I also think it's a better, you have a better argument for it, because with the long format, you can get ROI on films, but with shorts, you can never sell them. So fine, maybe I'll raise 50,000 US dollars for a short and I get my short done. But whomever sponsored me or whomever gave me that money will never see their money back. Or if they do, they'll never get the entire amount back. But whereas with a feature film, if it does very well, you can absolutely recoup your money and give your investors their returns. So yes, in that sense, it's more viable and it's more sustainable. Plus, when you are in the long format arena, and I hate, I don't like saying this much, but it's the truth. People take you more seriously. It's very different when you have someone doing an hour and a half feature film that gets releases in cinemas, that has a space on like streamers like Netflix and whatnot. And also it's easier to create a name, and once you have a name, then you're in the game. That's it, you become global, and shorts will never give me that. It's a beautiful format, I've enjoyed it, I've done over 12 shorts, but it's really time to move on. And the final reason is I've become so confident in filmmaking that I feel I have such a strong voice the way I direct my films, that it's really time to delve into the long format. If I mean, it's like now or never, I need to get into it.
Wow, fantastic. And what's interesting, of course, is I think it's often much harder to do something short and really have a great impact because you've got minimal time. And often when we're working with speakers and a client gives a speaker a much shorter time, it's harder for the speaker than it is to do longer. So you probably have an advantage coming from short going to long. You've also won a lot of awards, haven't you? Can you tell us what you're most proud of?
Wow, that's a tricky question. For me, I think the most I'm really proud of is the golden what do you call, the golden horse of the Dubai International Film Festival. That's really difficult to get. So I guess there were two that I'm very proud of. So that one, because It was given for my film, and it was against 17 other competitors in that category. It's the highest category. And then also I got a seat. So my screenplay, Animal, won an accreditation at the Cannes Film Festival's Producers Network, and that's only by invitation. So because the script won a seat, I was able to do it, and it won out of 200 entries. So they selected 5 screenplays, and I made it to the top 5. That's always a very good sign, and if anything, it gives me confidence. Of course, when people tell me, what's the highest peak of your career, it's honestly, it's when I get young adults, like teenagers or even younger, a group of people like 11 and 10 send me this really sweet email saying, you've inspired me and I want to follow your footsteps. I know that I'm doing something good, especially for girls, but I'm also getting them from younger boys. So it's pretty neat.
I love that. I love that. So I touched on speaking earlier, and obviously you speak and you're known for your speaking as well. What got you into that? How did you start? And what is the message that clients are asking you to deliver?
There are different types of speaking that I like to tackle. One is, the challenges and obstacles that one can get through when they're opening a business of a small, medium size. So everything that I've learned is from the ground up. So I like to kind of break it down. And if someone in the audience is about to start a business, I think they'll get a lot from that session itself. I like to speak about my own personal story. So how I use creativity and to overcome adversity, but by using humor and creativity, and how that has helped my own career. So, for instance, my story with my dad, where I had to marry someone to get an education, he thought I was joking, but I actually did. I had 2 months to hunt a husband down, and I was adamant to find a guy in 2 months. People can't find someone in 20 years. And I had 2 months to get on a flight, find a husband, and get out of here. So miraculously, I did it because I had that appetite for it. And I found someone who was willing to take that chance with me, and it worked. So I'm not saying everyone should take this road, but instead of like giving up, I always found a solution to my issues. And now I don't have to worry that much because I'm completely independent. But so I do speak about my personal journey, about women empowerment. Yeah, so and entrepreneurship. I guess that kind of summarizes it.
I do think there's a film there, isn't there, in your life story? Because I mean, that whole thing about finding someone in 2 months. Wow! I mean, it's taken me 57 years, so it's
Yeah.
incredible.
And
So,
having said that, I was actually offered a book deal to write that portion of my life and how I made it happen, and how far I've come in my career, especially here in the UAE. And we're talking about it. So it is because I haven't given you the full-fledged detail, but the actual story, I mean, it's crazy.
oh, actually, that's a film I'd love to watch. So yes, please make that. Do the book, read the book. I'll read the book, watch the film. That sounds fantastic. What projects are you currently involved in?
So at the moment, I have 3 projects, and one is a feature film that I've done a short for. So I did a short to raise money for the feature, and I've been very successful in that way. I guess I got also lucky. I mean, luck played a big role, but the timing was key because it was just before Corona hit. So I was able to make the film and do a booking in the cinema. So I forwalled. I basically booked a cinema hall and invited a lot of potential investors to watch 12 minutes of the film. And I got 2 offers afterwards. Like immediately, I got 2 offers to finance the entire film. So that's a position I understand that a lot of filmmakers don't really get the luxury to be in that position. But instead of just doing a film deck and a screenplay, I had that. But on top of that, I took the effort to shoot it to make them see how it feels like, even with the surround sound, and did like a whole red carpet evening to bring these people and see how badly I wanted this to be done. So I guess they saw that my passion was contagious and they really wanted to be part of the film. So that's one film, which is called Three. And then the other one is a purely commissioned project, and it's a fun film. It's an adventure children's film, almost like the Goonies meet Indiana Jones, and it's going to be shot in 4 different countries. It's not a genre that I'm attracted to, but when I read it, I couldn't leave it was just it was so funny. I couldn't stop laughing, and I thought, as a mother, this changes my perspective, because that means if I do this and it's a really good film, my kids can watch it when they're 6 and 7 and have a good time. And that just makes me kind of feel warm and fuzzy inside. And the third one is a series. So this is the first series I'll be attached to as an executive producer. I gave the concept to a company in London called Rocket Science. and they've been fishing it around, and they were able to attach a really big name on the film, on the series, as a director writer. I can't really reveal it because they're going to do the announcement officially themselves. But if this happens to me, this is a massive game changer, because it really puts me immediately, under the radar with the big boys, so to speak.
Wow. What's amazing about you is that everything you don't do it by halves. You're not doing one, you're not working on one project, you're working on three. You don't do small, in fact, you don't do one TED talk, you've done four. Now how did you do that?
I think with TED Talks, it spiraled. So I did one, and I believe maybe people said, "Oh my God, you got to listen to her story," and then they talked to each other, I believe. So I ended up doing one in Abu Dhabi, but they all had different themes. I did one in Abu Dhabi, one in Dubai, and Ras Al Khaimah and Fujairah. And I remember one of the theme was overcoming your fears, because I know that fear is such a big deterrent to a lot of people and stops them from attaining their goals. And if anybody understands fear, it's me, because I had a very strict upbringing. I mean, so strict that when I even actually delve into the story, people are like, "Oh wow, I mean, how did you guys even go through this without being completely mentally shattered?" But I'm very proud to say that mental health is very important to me and my family now. So we kind of tackled those issues long time ago, and we are in a very safe and comfortable space now. But so that topic was, it came very strongly at TEDx, and I was able to do that twice. And the other two that TEDx were really more for my personal journey and my life story that is quite larger than life when you think about how I had to, find someone within 2 months to get on that flight before I miss a chance to get film education.
Fantastic. Maybe that's the thing. You've got to give yourself a very short term time span to achieve a really big goal. Maybe that's the solution. So, what's your ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal is to make films that get a global distribution, because to me that would be like reaching the peak. It's like any climber, for them, like, is to climb all the big summits in the world. For me, it's to make few films and get them in world cinema. So if today I make a film that's about my people and it gets, let's say, 1,000 screens worldwide or more, that to me is insane. Like, if today I know that my film is opening in New York next week, that would be incredible, while I'm in a completely different continent. Where I was, where I couldn't, even get a decent education, to getting a film distributed worldwide by a big studio, that would be the ultimate dream.
That
And maybe
sounds
then something else will pop up. But until then, that's my goal.
I'm sure it will. That is wonderful. So finally, because we've come to the end of our time, is there anything that you would like to leave our listeners with? Is there any tip or any encouragement you can give them about, achieving goals, about being fearless? Because you've got so much passion. Is there any thought you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Yes, absolutely. I want to give them a practical thought, something that they can actually use, instead of saying, be fearless, because we can always say these wonderful romantic terms and you listen to them and then you're back to square one. For me personally, what really helped me, and I always tell people to do this, is volunteer. And what I mean by volunteer is, if there's something that's holding you back, you're passionate about a certain field, but let's say you're an accountant and you want to get into fine arts or something completely different, and you just want to tap into that, then to me, what helped me the most was volunteering. So I would volunteer in different film sets, understand the how it works, understand the different departments, and then I would completely gravitate, or I would be attracted to a certain department, and that's how I build my skill set. So it wasn't just my own short films, because that takes time to make, but also being involved and volunteering. Even today, when I don't need to, I volunteer on a set where I know I'm going to learn from someone who's definitely more experienced than I am. So I always have that mentality that there's so much more to learn. Always remember that no matter how high you get, there's always more to learn. So volunteering is the best way to achieve that. And something else will happen: networking. You will automatically network and build your network that way. So for me, that was actually life changing, because I met a lot of people, and I met my current producer on my film that I'm shooting in 2022.
Wow, that is such good advice. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure getting to know more about you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your time and having giving me the space to say a few things.